Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr, but more importantly, Tom, today we are also here with Buckeye Scoop's own Marc Givler. Marc, how are you today?
I'm doing good. We're getting acclimated and got some audience behind, some wildlife behind us. Hopefully nothing goes horribly wrong here during this, and we'll get through it.
You'll get used to the animal attacks. I got through it. Tom has gotten through it as well, so I think it's part of being in Miami. You are attacked by lizards and things like that. So Tom, how are you?
I'm good. We set up about right where we did last night when we did one of these, and I had a pretty intense stare down with a rather large 2.5 foot maybe iguana. He backed down, but then a bunch of people came out to smoke, so then we moved over here anyway. So we felt like it was a better spot because here we get better highway noise, and also the wind's probably a little louder. So we figured this was probably a little more on brand of a spot anyway.
Yeah, it was good. This right here, this building next to us, might be like a tool shed or perhaps where the lawnmower is.
My theory is it's a noise factory. That's my working theory, but we'll find out.
Yeah,
we'll all find out together.
We will find out. So thank you guys for joining us. It is National Championship Day. Ohio State and Alabama will kick off around somewhere between 8:15 and 8:39-ish.
Well, the official media schedule says 8:15. So I'm not sure I completely believe that. I told people on our board, this is what it says. When we get to the stadium and the countdown clock actually starts, then we can tell you what the time is. It's always, they don't want to ever really tell you. It's like, when you're like buying a car and they don't want to tell you the price. It's like, well, we don't want to tell you exactly. What time would you like? What would you like the time to start being?
Come back to the office.
We'll negotiate. Yeah, we'll negotiate. I got to talk to my. Okay, you wanted it at 8:15. Listen, I got to talk to my boss.
See what we can do.
Mark's like, wait, these guys are idiots. I've never watched one of these before.
So, Marc, Tom and I have both already given our predictions. Tom went 38-35, Alabama. I went a much closer score, 37-35 for Alabama. What did you do?
I thought about it all week, and I was going to pick Alabama. And when it came down to it, I went Ohio State 42, Alabama 38. Basically, I think they're going to trade touchdowns, and ultimately Ohio State will eventually force a field goal, and that'll be the difference. I don't know, there's something about this team right now that I can't quite put my finger on it, but it feels like a team that could win it. And if you look at the past Ohio State national championship teams, it's never the ones we actually think are going to win that end up winning. It's always a team that has to overcome some obstacles that maybe we don't pinpoint them mid-season as a championship team, and the ones that we do end up with some type of tragic loss somewhere along the way. So I don't know. This feels like the past two national championship teams to me, of people maybe not giving them a great chance to do it.
So that's a really good point, because you had the 98 team, everybody expected to be a national champion, wasn't. The 02 team with a new starting quarterback, a freshman running back, came out of nowhere, kind of, I think ranked 13th in the nation to start, wins a national title. 2014 team, we weren't expecting that, and then because then you expect the 2015 team, and it doesn't happen. Right. I like your thinking, Marc. Tom, is he crazy?
No, he's not crazy, and I think this is an important point to draw here. The difference between Marc's score prediction and my score prediction and Tony's score prediction is that Tony wanted to pick my score prediction, but I already picked it, so he changed his ever so slightly. And then it's a difference between that and Ohio State scores one more touchdown. There's one more touchdown pass that hit, I had a picture of Luke Farrell's touchdown pass last week, 10 days ago, whenever that was, at the Sugar Bowl. And it's like, the Clemson defender's thumb is here, the ball is right here, and it's a matter of, does that ball hit that Clemson defender's thumb and get deflected and become an incomplete pass or touchdown? That's it. That's the difference between these score predictions, which I think tells me we're probably, either this is some incredible groupthink, or we're probably onto something in terms of what to really look for in this game.
We both, I think we all read Ross's latest piece, Ross Fulton's piece about the what to do against the Alabama offense. And it was interesting to me that he basically saying, force Alabama to run the ball. Let Najee Harris try to control the clock, show Mac Jones a soft defense so that they're forced to run it, and then just crash as they give the ball off, because the RPOs that Alabama runs are so dangerous. That's why I keep talking about Ohio State's tackling. They tackled so well against Clemson. Marc, if they don't tackle that well again, I don't think they can win this one.
No, they're going to have to tackle. I thought they got pretty close to an A game out of Marcus Williamson.
Yeah.
And maybe even the last 2 weeks. I thought they got a pretty strong game. You can nitpick here and there, but I thought they got a pretty strong game from Josh Proctor. I thought they got, especially in tackling and run support, guys like Justin Hilliard and Pete Warner who are going to be out in space. We almost have to include them with the secondary guys with what they'll be asked to do. They've been on a great run all year, really. They'll need to continue to do that. But yeah, it's the yards after catch, I think, especially on a guy like Devontae Smith, where if he catches 10 balls for 110 yards, I don't think that's a bad thing. What you can't have is him catching 7 or 8 balls for 175 yards.
Right,
That's where I think you get into trouble. So yeah, certainly tackling and I think getting a little pressure up in Mac Jones' face up the middle will be important too. Because I don't think he's had much stress this year.
No, he hasn't. I mean, there's no defense in the SEC, so.
That's because it's a good conference. Just like 10 years ago when there was no offense in the SEC, that was because it was a good conference.
Thank you, Tom. You explained it very well.
I mean, the interesting thing with Mac Jones is he hasn't been pressured a ton this year. He's also not super mobile. Like, you think at this point you just assume every quarterback is like, oh, he can go, he can move a little bit, he can get out of the pocket, he can run for 20 yards, like the Trevor Lawrence kind of mobile. Not like, this isn't Braxton Miller, but like can get out and hurt you. They're really not. That's not what Mac Jones is. Mac Jones is much more of a traditional pocket passer, which, A, he hasn't faced a lot of pressure. If he gets pressure, how will he react? B, will he be able to escape? Because I think the answer may be no in a lot of cases. And C, that also lets you be a little more aggressive in your pass rush, even with your front four. With Lawrence, it was kind of, they were very mindful of trying to keep him in the pocket, not, don't get 8 yards deep and give him an alley to run through. You're not really worried about that so much with Mac Jones. Maybe he squirts out and gets, a better look downfield, but you're not worried about him, getting out of the pocket and then taking off for 40 yards. That's just not his game. So I think that might actually help the Ohio State pass rush a little bit more tonight.
Let's talk about the Ohio State offense, because I think this is where the Buckeyes if they have an advantage in this game, it is their offense. Justin Fields has come in a little banged up, but in the videos we've seen, and it's not just a ping pong video analysis that we've done, there has been also other videos of him perhaps like standing around doing nothing, where you can clearly see he seems okay, and the ribs aren't even an issue. But as Tom, we said in the last show, Mark, it comes down to one hit could turn him from 95% to 60%. I think that's the biggest concern for Ohio State in this game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his ability to run, I think, is going to be crucial here. I do think they're going to pay a lot of attention to those receivers, and I think we're going to try and make some of these other guys beat them, and that's where Justin's legs, I think, can come in, picking up those crucial 3rd and 8s. I know Ross mentioned it. It's important in every game, but I think it's extra important to stay on schedule against Alabama's defense. But eventually they're not. Eventually they are. There's going to be an incompletion, maybe a 2-yard loss or something. They're getting behind schedule, and that's where his legs are going to be so important. And I think it's going to help open up the run game as well. The threat of him pulling and running. I'm sure he's going to get a shot of something, before the game. So hopefully that gets him most of the way through where he can take a hit or two, and it's not going to totally blow things up for him. But I mean that's the key to the offense for me is they need their best player to be their best player.
Right.
And if that happens, I think they're going to score a lot of points.
And that's, I mean, we talked yesterday on one of the shows about the fact that this is the odds that Alabama wins by 43 or more were like 16-1, which is the same as Ohio State winning by 14 or more. And I don't see the scenario where they get blown out. It just seems like Alabama's going to be able to score enough, and Ohio State's going to be able to score enough that no one's winning this game by 40 points.
Right.
This is not Alabama's not winning this game 59-13 because. Unless if Ohio State gets off the bus at the correct stadium, they're not scoring 13 points. They're scoring, what is the absolute bare minimum? Justin Fields is healthy for 60 minutes. What is the bare minimum amount of points you would expect from Ohio State tonight? Like everything, things really don't go well, and yet they still score 24, 28, something in that range.
I was thinking 24, but I don't know that they're going to be kicking many field goals.
Well, they score 4 touchdowns and miss 4 extra points. Obviously.
But then I'm thinking it's between 21 and 28, and I only say 21, and that's if they get shut down in the red zone like 3 times and come up empty. Because I think they're going to have 6, 7 scoring opportunities, at least, of being in the red zone or attempting a field goal. Against Northwestern, they had 6 scoring opportunities and came up with like 9 points at one point. And that's not really, that does them no good in this one.
Yeah.
And so I think 21 sure seems low. 24 seems odd with a field goal in there, but in that range for the bare minimum, I think.
Yeah. I had a question. If we couldn't find chairs, well, we're out on a little bit of a hilly slope here, and also we're going to be sitting down a bunch later today, so we're going to make the.
We're not too good to stand for the people.
Yeah, and it keeps us more mobile in case of a surprise alligator attack.
Exactly. You don't want to be sitting down and like, there are no chairs in the jungle. Do you understand that, people? You stand around and you keep your head on a swivel, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, we're basically doing the nature equivalent of going over the middle. Like, yeah, just head on a swivel out there, gang.
I just don't want the iguana to target me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we've got the Ohio State passing game. We know the Alabama defensive, the pass defense has not been as good as in past years, despite having some very talented guys. I know Patrick Surtain is an All-American, and he is all this and all that. But I will take Chris Olave, Mark, over anybody. I don't care. I'm not going to not throw the ball to Chris Olave because he's defended by Patrick Surtain. Would you avoid Chris Olave like a coward if he's being covered by Patrick Surtain?
No, I mean I wouldn't go out of my way to avoid Surtain. I would try to get Garrett Wilson lined up in either on a safety or on a nickel corner. I would be trying to do that. I would isolate. We've talked about that. I know Ross has a lot. Isolating Wilson and Olave on the opposite side of trips and seeing what Alabama does there. I would definitely give a lot of those looks. But you can get Surtain. Trayvon Grimes had a good game against him when they played Florida. I do think Olave and Wilson present interesting matchups for Pat because Pat is, if you saw Pat in person, he looks like a lot. You'll see him tonight. I mean, he looks like a linebacker. He's an enormously physically imposing corner, and that's not really Olave's game. So I think there's some finesse. Both obviously Wilson and Olave are kind of more finesse guys, and I think those guys would actually provide more issue for Surtain than maybe a Michael Thomas type of guy who's more of a big physical guy.
Well, and Trayvon Grimes is a physical,
but
bigger
Trayvon's
guy.
a track guy too, though.
Right,
so
yeah,
I mean, he was able to kind of stretch the field a little bit there. I think he's gettable. I think he's really good, but I don't think it's one of those things where you just take half the field away. I don't think it's Charles Woodson or anything like that.
Yeah, and the other thing that's going to be interesting is Garrett Wilson. Who is he going to be on? I mean, you brought it up: nickel corner, slot, safety. Their star, Malachi Morris, is banged up. That star is their slot corner, basically, their third corner. So, what is going to be the deal with him? Because Saban made it sound like he was he the one he called very questionable, or quite questionable, something like that. I mean, it sounded like you might not have the guy that you want to have there. That's not a great matchup because that's probably the guy who's on Garrett Wilson a lot, unless they're really moving people around. Now, the other thing that can kind of, how much man are they going to play versus how much pattern matching zone are they going to do? Because that's something that Ross Fulton wrote about as well at Buckeye Scoop, where they will play a lot of zone, but it's not just like a traditional, you're here, you're here, you're here. They will kind of follow the guys. Ross compared it to like a matchup zone in basketball, where you're following, you're basically playing man on whoever is in your zone, more or less. So, you can draw things up to try and get Garrett Wilson matched up with whoever is playing in place of Malachi. If he is in fact out, you can maybe set yourself up for some of that stuff. But it's not quite as easy as if it was just like a pure man team.
Well, and we've seen with these wide receiver routes where it starts out as a mesh route and then goes vertical, and that's a more difficult handoff than from over. You just hand them off across the middle. Now you're handing them off to somebody who might be a safety who might be off down another hash, and so there's different ways that Ryan Day we know will find where him and Kevin Wilson will think they have found some things to attack. We'll see. Their other starting cornerback, Josh Jobe, I believe is his name. I had an NFL scout say he's kind of a head case. So he can be. He's a head case. He can be attacked, and then he starts thinking about it, and maybe gets. out of sorts. And I think maybe Jameson Williams is a guy to watch there. We saw him flash a little bit against Clemson, but they'll also throw Garrett Wilson out wide. They'll throw Jackson Smith and Jigba out wide. So it's not just one particular person. They'll move guys all around, and I think that's another reason why these receivers are so good. It's becoming almost positionless with those guys because they can all play anywhere. You don't necessarily know what each of them is going to do, and then they catch everything, and then they can do stuff after the catch. So while we're talking about stopping Devontae Smith after the catch, maybe I see the Ohio State receivers as being more deep threats, but they can also do stuff after the catch.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett's kind of crafty in space. That's probably the best way to put it. He's crafty in space. A guy we haven't really talked about, Jameson Williams. Do they get him on some bubble screens or in space, get him a chance to kind of run after the catch, because he's a guy who, once he gets out, he's like a 400-meter guy.
I saw his touchdown last year where it was just a simple catch. And
yeah,
run.
I mean, maybe they can clear out some of that intermediate interior stuff for him. So yeah, there's definitely guys who can do it, and even Olave, I would say, is more like Garrett in terms of being a little more crafty after the catch than he is, explosive.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's going to be some room there. I think there's going to be some gaps with that zone. I think you're going to be able to, if they can find a seam, Jameson Williams, even a Trey Sermon out of the backfield. There's going to be some yards after the catch available, I think.
Although we're talking about the receivers, Tom, shouldn't we actually be talking about the stars of the passing game, the tight ends?
Yeah, I mean, that was the big trick play against Clemson was, hey, tight ends are eligible now. Eligible receivers. Who knew?
New rule.
New rule.
Changing the rules for the Buckeyes again.
Yeah, three touchdowns in the first half for the Ohio State tight ends. It's going to be real interesting to see what kind of matchup that presents for Ohio State, because the linebackers for Alabama are not great. They're really not great. They're fine. But in terms of, if you compare them to a typical Alabama murderers row linebacker group, no, this group is not that at all. They're fine. Mm-hmm. But they might be the weakest unit on Alabama's defense. It's them or maybe the safeties where the big vulnerabilities are with Alabama's defense. And, this is all you have to do to know this is not a vintage Nick Saban defense is look at the scores. Ole Miss ran it up on them. Florida ran it up on them. Now, they were able to outscore those teams, but if you're giving up 40-something points to a couple teams, okay, this is the best offense probably that they will have played this year. So, the key then is, maybe Alabama wants to limit possessions a little bit too. If Ohio State and Alabama are limiting possessions, that's the reason this doesn't get into the 40s.
That's interesting. Mark, who outrushes whom? Najee Harris or Trey Sermon? Where are you going with this? Tell the people.
I mean, I've got Ohio State winning, so I've got to think it's going to be Sermon. Do I think either guy is going to go crazy? No. But I think if Sermon can get to 100, maybe 120, I think that's going to be just enough to keep Alabama's defense honest. I do think they will hold Najee Harris under 100. That may partially be Alabama helping them do that by just full out airing it out on him. But I will go Sermon. I think Trey's in the zone right now,
yeah.
And I think he'll have another good game. I don't think it'll be quite the outburst we saw against Northwestern, obviously, and maybe not even quite as much. I don't know if he'll get as many touches as he did against Clemson. But I look for him to have another good game.
Tom, you said that since you picked Alabama, I believe you said Trey Sermon was going to be shut down.
I don't think I said shut down.
Okay.
I think I think there's a very good chance both Harris and Sermon rush for more than 100 yards. I think there's a very good chance of that happening. If one of them gets to 150, that team is probably winning. If one of them gets to 180, that team's almost definitely winning. 180, 200 yards. I think we said last night, if Ohio State has 200 yards rushing between Trey Sermon and Justin Fields, they're probably winning the game. If they're at 150 or so for them, you'd feel decent about their chances. It's at least a very close game. Someone wants to know why Mark is the gator bait being closer to the water. That's he's new here. He drew the short straw. It is.
You don't see the stake tied behind his legs.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see how much Ohio State can run. Because if Ohio State can run, and I think they can, if you can kind of just at least kind of have a push at the offensive line, not like driving them down the field, but just like a push in the gambling sense, like it's just kind of a neutral. I think there's going to be spots. I mean, Ohio State last week against Clemson, we saw them put trips to the boundary, and then you have a whole big wide open area to the field side where these Alabama linebackers are not quite what you would think. Trey Sermon makes one of those guys miss. There's a whole lot of green in front of him.
Yeah, I agree. Before we get to questions, I've got some player prop bets from Bet Online that I want to throw at you guys to see how you feel about it. Game MVP, the favorite, Mac Jones was 7-2 odds. Mark, how do you feel about that? Justin Fields 9-2.
I mean, I probably would put the money on Fields. It's a little better money. If you think the game's a toss-up, which I basically do, take the 9-2. But I think, it's going to be one of the quarterbacks. It's almost certainly going to be one of the quarterbacks.
Well, you can get Devontae Smith for 5-1, Najee Harris 5-1.
I don't think it's going to be a running back. Maybe Devontae, maybe one of the OSU. What's Olave or Wilson?
Olave and Wilson are both 18-1, if you can believe
well,
that.
there's your
there's
throw
your
five
value,
or $10 on it and see what happens.
Yeah.
There's that.
Tom, Trey Sermon and Jalen Waddle are both 10-1. One is going to play.
Yeah, one of them is going to play. Yeah, I would keep your money in your pocket if you're going to bet on Jalen Waddle. But Trey Sermon, I think the assumption would be if Ohio State wins, it's almost certainly going to be the quarterback that wins the MVP, and that's, I think, a reasonable assumption. How did this game go the last time these teams met? I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure Ezekiel Elliott was the MVP. So, if Trey Sermon is at, basically where Ezekiel Elliott was at that point, I don't know, would he have 120, 130 yards, something like that, and then had the 85? If you have something like that where, you're trying to run out the clock, Bama's defense is a little bit tired, those linebackers are not quite what they were before, you open up a little hole. I mean, we've seen Trey Sermon go. He's got the speed to do it. That is not, would you say 16-1?
Yep, 18-1.
18-1 18 for Trey Sermon.
No, it's 10-1 for Trey Sermon.
10 for Trey Sermon. I mean, that's not a terrible place to throw a little money to. If you think Ohio State's going to win, that's not a terrible bet.
Total passing yards for Justin Fields, 290.5.
It's got to be over if they're going to win, right?
Unless they're rushing for 280, 300 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems...
But if they're moving the ball that easily, I would think he's going to be over. And if they're losing, they're going to be over.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's over. Win or lose.
Interesting possibility. You parlay the Trey Sermon with the Justin Fields passing under. If Trey Sermon's going crazy, then Trey Sermon over whatever his over under is, Justin Fields under, and Trey Sermon MVP. I mean, I don't know what kind of odds you're getting on that, but this is a throw $5 on it.
Now here's a cowardly line. Total touchdown passes for Justin Fields, 3. So you've got to go 2 or 4. I think I would leave that because 3 feels like a decent answer.
It's like the perfect number.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet it.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to, I would probably say under, just because I think Sermon will, even if, let's say they score 42, let's say they score 6 touchdowns. I mean, Sermon can get a couple, and then Fields can touchdown vulture himself.
Exactly.
And get a couple rushing himself. So
now, Mac Jones total passing yards, prepare your ears, 365.5.
That is not the orifice you need to prepare if that's the over-under.
Trevor Lawrence threw for 400.
Right, and that tells you exactly what people think is the vulnerability on this Ohio State defense, and I think that's true. I mean, the run defense has been so good that if Bama's going to really blow up, they're going to have to do it through the air. So, I would say, there's an interesting angle to this, which is Steve Sarkisian is he really wants big plays. He really wants big plays. He doesn't want to just pound it and take the easy stuff. He wants to throw it. You have the big play Alabama receivers. That's a real high number, but if you're going, boy, that's a real high number.
that's tough.
That's a real, I was prepared to say over based on no matter what you said, and it was like, boy, that was like 60 yards higher than I was expecting it to be. That's a lot.
I mean, strangely enough, if you think Alabama's going to win, wouldn't you say the under?
Probably. You would think.
Because if Alabama's going to win, they're going to have some semblance of a running game, I think. and also if they're playing from ahead,
Right.
I think they're going to want to keep Fields and those guys on the sideline.
Yeah.
Man, I wouldn't. I personally, that's not one I would. It doesn't jump out to me something I would want to put money on.
Over under total touchdown passes for Mac Jones, 3.5.
Over.
Tom.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, how many touchdowns they scored on the ground?
6.
2, maybe,
Right.
maybe 2. So, and I think there's a decent possibility he's, he hits that 4. Again, like this is one that I would not immediately throw money on, but
Yeah, I don't love that either, but I would probably go over. I have him scoring 5 touchdowns and a loss.
yeah,
For those passing. Maybe,
Yeah.
Maybe Harris gets one. I mean, Mac, I guess, if they get down inside the 1, he gets QB sneak, but he's not likely to score a rushing touchdown.
Right.
Not so much like Fields would be. So and I also don't think they're going to hold Alabama under 30. So,
Yeah, the opportunities are there.
I think Bama's floor is pretty high in this game in terms of their offensive output.
right.
I've got one you guys will like here in a second. But first, total receiving yards for Chris Olave, 95.5.
I think you're really hoping that's over if you're an Ohio State fan.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I think he'll get one deep. He gets. Everyone talks about his speed. He's always like every game he catches one. It seems like every game
you
he
throw a
catches
50-yarder,
bomb,
and then
so-
he's going to catch like 5 or 6 other passes for 10 yards.
They're going
or
to play
whatever.
some zones, so they're going to get some of those soft, easy 10-yarders.
And if they're losing,
Right.
then
Yeah.
you just give up yards
Yeah.
and just try to keep them out of the end
Yeah,
zone.
just a bunch of 10-yard outs to Olave and Wilson.
If he goes under, they're going to need like 180 from Garrett. I think.
Well, here's the thing. Total receiving yards for Garrett Wilson, 71.5.
Over.
Over. That might be my favorite one.
That was
I'm a huge Garrett Wilson homer, but that
I knew that one would strike you guys.
no.
That
Garrett's-
seems easy, right?
Yeah,
that seems
almost
too easy.
It's a trick.
That's
Yeah.
borderline. That's very fishy.
Here's another easy one. Total receiving yards for Jeremy Ruckert, 45.5. Over by double. No, I'm just kidding. Well, how do you feel about 45.5 for Jeremy Ruckert? I'm going to go under because they've got 2 tight ends.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're thinking you're gonna, if you're thinking there's a big Olave day and a big Wilson day, if those two guys have 200 between them, you're gonna have 40 or 50 to Sermon probably. So there's 250. How much, are they gonna hit 300, and then that rest of that split between the other wide receivers and
But Ruckert could also pick that up in one catch down the seam.
What's his career long? I feel like his career long is probably about 25.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like the longest one I can remember is like the Wisconsin touchdown. He had one that was 20-25 against Clemson. The Wisconsin Big Ten championship game one last year
He's
was
due, is
probably
what I'm saying.
25. Yeah, I mean, when in doubt.
Is
yeah.
anybody taking this one?
I don't like. I think that number's just about right. I think
Never
that number-
wager on tight ends.
Yeah,
That
that's
number's just
a
about
good. Every bone in my body that has watched Ohio
you
State for
catch-
decades is saying under.
You could catch 5 or 6 balls and it could be like 35 yards because
true.
it could all be red
Yeah,
zone.
right.
And you
You're right.
could have 2 or 3 touchdowns,
Yeah.
and it could still be under.
MVP under.
Right. So
Here's one. Devontae Smith, total receiving yards, 135.5. I think is a little bit under his average.
If that's under, Ohio State's winning this game.
yeah,
I would agree with that.
that's a really strong indicator, I guess, for Ohio State what he does there. I would say over. I think he'll fall somewhere between what I said would definitely win them the game at like 100 and 110 and something that might definitely lose them the game at like 180, 190.
Right.
I think he probably falls right in that 140-ish, 150 range.
I don't think we can be confident enough in the corners to limit at least one big play down the field and maybe another broken play.
And I think they're going to feed him
Yeah.
on some screens and he'll
definitely.
get something. And it's just a matter of
Over under is 1.5 touchdowns for Devontae Smith. Where you going?
Over under 1.5. Probably over, because I think he's going to have enough catches that you get a quick slant or something in the red zone.
Yeah, it's
an
cheap
8-yard
touchdowns.
touchdown from the
Right.
on a quick slant or something, or he catches one on a little bubble. I mean, he had one against Notre Dame where he caught like a little bubble and just went
Like,
30 yards down the sideline.
Yes.
And I don't think if again, this is another one where if he's under that, Ohio State wins.
All right, I can go with that. Let's go to rushing. Total rushing yards for Trey Sermon. Are you guys ready? 98.5.
Over.
I think over.
That seems real low to me. I mean, that's one long one, and I think they're going to run him 25 times at least. So, if you're running him 25 times, he'd have to average 4 yards a carry.
I don't see that happening.
He's gonna bust one at some point. It doesn't mean 85 yards, but that means 30 yards, 40 yards. I mean, he's been so good, and the front seven is not so unbeatable for Alabama that, and I think they're going to want to play back and not get gashed. I think they're going to try and get there with 4 guys, and I think Ohio State can probably run the ball enough. He could be at 98 by the middle of the third quarter.
And then just tackle a bunch in the backfield.
Oh man, get backdoored. Woo.
Yeah, I threw out a number a few minutes ago. I think about 120. I think that's about right. I think he's gonna have a really good game. I don't think he's gonna go Zeke, Sugar Bowl crazy, but I think he's gonna have a good game. I think about 120 is about right. So I would go over, obviously.
Justin Fields, total rushing yards. I'm gonna guess sacks included. 55.5. I'm going under.
That's a great number.
Yeah, probably under because you're gonna have a couple sacks. I don't know how much they're really, they're gonna want to run him. They're gonna want to run him enough to force Alabama to respect it, but he's not.
Are you gonna rush him for 70 yards, knowing you're gonna lose like 20? Because that's to me what I'm thinking. It's like 8 or 9, 10 rushes, and a couple of sacks, and I don't know that he needs to be running the ball all that much.
I think he's gonna run the ball enough that they're forced to respect it, but not too much because they want to keep him healthy.
Yeah, I think you're gonna want, whatever that number is. If it's 10 hits, whatever it is, you're gonna want an X number of hits you're kind of willing to let him have in the course of the game, and I think you're gonna want to burn those in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
Then the final one, Najee Harris rushing yards, 106.5.
That's a great number too.
I was gonna say that's a real good number.
I could see him being like going 107 and having almost
very
very little impact.
I wouldn't play that. I think that's right on the nose. He could have 95. He could have 110.
Right.
That's a great number. I don't think I would do anything with that.
That's a number that Steve Sarkisian's gonna have to. He's gonna be the one who determines that.
Yeah.
Because if they run him
You think
25
he's got money on that?
Smart. That would be really smart. He just got a nice big fat contract from Texas. You double that money. On
a prop bet that is limited to like $50.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, this is going to be one of those things where how much are they going to run him? Are they going to give him? How many carries did Derrick Henry have the last time Ohio State played Alabama? 12, 13?
Yeah, like 13, I think.
I think we have seen a former USC head coach
Is that right?
have a stud running back in the backfield and go, no, we're going to throw it. We're going to throw it even though he's averaging 7-8 yards a carry. It's like, I mean, that's the thing you can do. I would assume Harris is going to be in that 6-ish range at least per carry, probably. 5.5, 6 at the minimum.
If he's averaging 6 yards a carry and they don't give him to him 25 times, they deserve to lose.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we've seen it before.
Right.
Sark is by heart, a throw the ball down the field guy. So it would not floor me if that was the case, but I think that's what's going to determine whether that number goes over.
Would you say the last 2 Ohio State national championship teams, and not that the Alabama game was a national championship game, but by going away from the running back, that helped Ohio State. By Willis McGahee getting hurt, helped Ohio State. So either in this one, does something have to happen to Najee Harris for Ohio State to win this game? Either he gets ignored or he gets taken out.
No, I think if they keep him to a standard 20 carries, 95, 100 yards. Look, they're not going to. This is not going to be the Miami defensive slugfest. I think you got to score 40. I don't know how 40. How this is under 40 for the winner. I think the winner is going to have to get to 40. So I don't think anything super special needs to happen there. Just don't just don't get into those situations where, the Bama offense gets rolling and they start, 10, 12, 15-yard chunk plays. If you can just keep them somewhat contained, get a couple of negative plays, get them off schedule a little bit. But no, he could get 100, 120 and win the game.
I agree. Should we go to questions?
We can do questions. We had someone who was in there annoying a whole bunch of people who got muted a little earlier, but the generic SEC fan who wants to tell you how many SEC championships, how many national championships the SEC has won in the last 10 years. Sir, are you a Kentucky fan or a Vanderbilt fan? SEC, the Stolen Valor Conference.
Go SEC.
That's very much a Tennessee fan type of.
Yakov says, nice pregame meal, or will we rely on whatever's provided in the press box / stadium snack bars? Mark, I guess that's up to you. What are we doing for lunch?
Yeah, we haven't figured it out yet because we were going to go to Mama Lucy's, and that apparently is closed on Mondays. So we're going to try and find something decent. We're still figuring that out though.
We had a delightful Cuban dinner last night at Versailles for all of you in Ohio. It was quite good. I woke up this morning still kind of full. It was like, that was probably about 7,000 calories. Dr. Cortez Smith says Alabama can join the Vince McMahon Kiss My Butt Club tonight because Ohio State Buckeyes will win the national championship title. He's a doctor. We should probably listen to him. Brad says, imagine Ohio State in their 7 games played against four top 25 defenses. Bama has played 3. I mean, Alabama has crushed people. Alabama has held opposing offenses down too. And then you look at the back half of their schedule and it's like,
But everybody's the product of their own conference this year.
Correct.
So it's like, can we really draw much? But I agree, there is no defense in the SEC. Thank you for saying that.
It's just me. Tim says Ryan Day likes throwing into the end zone. I mean, they do throw a lot in the red zone, but I could see that being. I mean, you touched on earlier. Is that where you see Justin Fields on the ground a lot?
Well, remember how much people got mad at always running JT Barrett in the red zone?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, why don't you throw the ball more? And now they're throwing the ball a little bit more. I do think obviously it's better if you're able to just pound it in. That's great. I don't necessarily know that's. Trey Sermon hasn't done that a lot this year.
Right.
He hasn't scored a lot, and I don't know that you really want to be pounding Justin Fields. I think that's why it was so brilliant to finally go to the tight ends after 3 weeks of no catches. And it's not like they were wide open because they weren't, but it also showed you that these guys can catch the ball because Jeremy Ruckert's second touchdown was covered. Luke Farrell was covered on his touchdown. The only one where Jeremy Ruckert wasn't covered was the throwback, which is designed to have him completely uncovered. So these guys are still pretty decent athletes because they're hell of a run blockers and they can catch the ball. So in close quarters, maybe go to the big guys. It's like posting up.
Well, and the great transition here to Vinay's question. Over under 2 combined touchdowns for Ruckert or Farrell. First of all, let's teach you guys. Let's set these over unders with an and a half because otherwise it's very easy for us to say push. So Mark, over under 2 touchdowns for Luke Farrell and Jeremy Ruckert combined tonight.
I'll say under. I think they will get one. I think they'll find one of them.
Yeah, if I'm going to bet, I'm going to go under, not over. Now, what about 1.5?
Push. I think.
Who bets a push?
I think.
Yes.
I think. Yes.
Dear Mr.
A
Vegas.
push on 1.5.
Mr. Vegas,
It looks like 2, but one of them gets overturned on a replay. Fight me.
I don't think that's how Vegas sees that. I don't think that's how Vegas calculates that.
They're going to have to start.
Agree to disagree.
See how that goes for you and your broken legs. I still think it was 1.5.
Okay, can't talk about that. Lots of people angry about the guy. Over under on the number of shots Mark takes tonight if the Buckeyes win.
You ain't got to get up tomorrow for the airport. You ain't got
All we have is beer in the room,
That's
right?
right. Well,
So
40
shots of beer. Yeah, I'll have a few. I'll probably have a few either way. Actually, I might have more if they lose because I'm going to have to be on the message board moderating.
Correct.
Brad says he thinks Borland or Cooper deserves a pick. So he said PIC, which I assume I think he means interception. But
Or a photo?
I'll get photos
Okay.
of them. We'll be there. But
If Tough Boylan gets an interception, in his last game as a Buckeye.
Ohio
Takes
State
it
will
back.
win.
Yeah, well, I mean,
said it,
you go
right?
back to last year, the very beginning of that game. He had what looked like a pick six, and he just couldn't quite bring it in. And that was one of you went through the the 12 things that had to all go exactly wrong for Ohio State to lose that game. That was one of them. Yeah, if Tough Borland has a pick, I mean, last time Ohio State played Alabama, Steve Miller had a pick six from the defensive end position. So Jonathan Cooper, I wrote about Justin Hilliard and how he's had this crazy long, strange road. Jonathan Cooper, I mean, you covered Jonathan Cooper in high school. You know Jonathan Cooper and his family pretty well. You run people through the Jonathan Cooper story and what his career has been like at Ohio State, and then to now be potentially a difference-making player on a national championship team.
Yeah, I mean, so much. Like, I don't even know where to start with him. There's so much we could talk about. But, this guy was 195 pounds his sophomore year of high school, and he just had this amazing motor. And it took Ohio State a little bit to offer him, but, they wanted to see if he could put on some weight. He was able to do that. He had a great camp with the Buckeyes and Larry Johnson, and just one of those guys who's always kind of been doubted a little bit, undersized, or maybe he's not as explosive enough, or he's a little short, or someone always has something to kind of knock him for. And I think historically, even with all the injuries he's been through at Ohio State, I think historically, when he's been healthy, and he's played his best in the biggest games. You go back to the Michigan game. He was phenomenal in the second half last week against Clemson. I expect him to be very active, and I know he's going to go against some really good offensive linemen. I know he's probably going to get matched up with Leatherwood quite a bit, but I think he's going to make a few difference-making plays, whether that's getting a hand on a pass or a strip sack or something. I think we're going to see him a lot. I think we're going to see his name called a lot. He's like, when they talk about juice over there, that's what he has, and I think he's sacrificed a lot to get to this point, and I think he's going to have a big game.
Well, and Haskell Garrett talked about it the other day. No matter who is out, as long as they have Haskell Garrett, he said, as long as we've got me and Coop, we'll be the Energizer Bunnies for the entire defense. We'll keep everybody going, and that's what those two have done. And similar paths, but both have gone through some adversity throughout their Ohio State careers, and now playing their best football as Buckeyes right when you want to. And those guys are going to be, Ohio State wins, those guys are going to be difference makers in getting some of the key stops and what we don't expect to be a whole bunch of stops.
Yakov says, with the Browns winning last night, if the Buckeyes can win tonight, could we say it's the greatest 24 hours in Ohio football history? If Ohio State wins tonight after the Browns beat the Steelers, whomped the Steelers on the road in the playoffs, shorthanded, this is probably already the greatest sports year in Ohio this century. I mean, at least this century, right? I mean, and I know I said something like that. I said something like that a week ago and had a bunch of angry Cincinnati fans in my mentions. And it's like, all right.
No, we're talking Ohio.
Yeah. Now, I said that and had a bunch of angry Cincinnati fans in my mentions too. Yeah, I mean, yes, that's fine. Congratulations. You don't root for the team that the majority of people and I say that as someone who is not a Browns fan, but the majority of people in the state.
The Bengals have also had a great year because they are now set up. Their franchise is set up with Joe Burrow. And sure, he was gone this year, but I think this is a successful year because you got your quarterback, then you also lost a bunch of games, so now you get to get another high draft pick. So congratulations, Bengals.
It's Just Me. Tim says, who has the FBS all-time best winning percentage? Now, I think off the top of my head, I think the answer is...
Overtook Boise State recently.
Did they overtake Boise State? Because it was Boise State for a while, and then it was like Ohio State was...
Yeah, I think the Clemson win finally set Ohio State by a couple of hundredths of a point.
Archie says, Ohio State 52, Bama 21. That would...
yes, it would be the greatest year in Ohio football.
That'd be a little shocking, but
you can get
dare to dream.
You can get probably some pretty good odds on that if you chose to.
Yeah.
Chris says, if the Indians win the national championship pennant, then it will be just mind-blowing. I have bad news about the Indians. Don't think this may be a little bit of a rebuilding year.
If the Mets win it, though, that would kind of be like the Indians.
Yeah, I mean, you could. As a Mets fan, I'd be perfectly fine with having a bunch of Indians fans on the bandwagon. That's fine with me. As a Phillies fan, I'm sure Mark is not feeling that way. Late breaking rumor that one OSU player is flying in today.
Oh, come on.
That's from the Buckeye Scoop account, and I have a feeling I know who's messaging from the Buckeye Scoop account. So now, flying in today does not mean playing. Flying in today could be someone who has had their 10 days and is now starting the 7-day. So I believe that. I don't know how much stock to put in it in terms of actual on-field impact.
Yeah, it's the first time hearing about it.
Yes.
I've only been up for an hour, so it's too early for me to deal with that right now.
Yakov says 50-50. Jim Harbaugh watches an 80s movie marathon in place of the title game. Which 80s movie is Jim Harbaugh watching tonight?
I'm thinking he's doing a twofer of let's say, Adventures in Babysitting, and for some reason Back to the Future 3. He's like, because that's why go 1, 2, or no, I'm sorry, Mannequin 2.
Mark?
He's a Top Gun guy.
You're right.
No, that's it.
Top Gun.
Yeah,
There's your
Top
answer.
Gun guy.
There's your answer. He's a less cool version of the Iceman.
And but does he also sing like the music parts? Like, does he?
Oh, for sure. He is,
He's a Top Gun guy, but he doesn't find like any of the humor in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very serious,
Yeah, spike that volleyball.
Yes, it's a very serious epic to him. Yes, yes.
Michigan football has lost that love and feeling, so he may be singing along. Excellent point from our friend in Nevada, our friends in the desert. Michael Wiley used to run a little play by the end zone that Trey Sermon might bust out tonight. I mean, the greatest halfback passer in college football history, Michael Wiley.
Yes, the dude threw the ball, would run towards the line of scrimmage, and then all of a sudden bring the ball up to throw it. He was incredible.
Tom and Tony look like giants next to Mark. I mean, we are
I am
taller.
on
I think we're
elevated
taller than
ground.
Mark, but also Mark is further away and slightly downhill. Again, so it's easier
closer
for the
to the
Gators.
alligators.
Yes, exactly. Vinay says, have you noticed that the CFP national title wins have coincided with Harbaugh contract extensions and signings?
Really?
That's why they were so reluctant to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
That must be-
They tried to wait, but then the NFL kept calling, prank calling.
Great question from Derek. Do you think Seven Banks has 7 different bank accounts with 7 different banks? That's a great question.
That's a lot to, yeah, that's a lot to process and keep in transferring constantly.
Maybe in a year or two.
Yeah, right.
Brad says, not for nothing, I haven't heard Fields mention anything about the NFL or his future ever. I mean,
That's a lot of people, though.
that's a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, Josh Myers told us, he was asked about whether he was going to be turning pro.
What's understood doesn't need to be said.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and Josh Myers was asked whether he was turning pro, and he said, yeah, we'll talk about that on the 12th, which is
So
not
should
today.
we ask him after the game? Because it will be after midnight.
Depends on how. Yeah, that's a good question. Donald says, last time I asked if the Clemson game was the equivalent of the Miami game in 2002, you told me to wait for Bama and we could entertain that idea. So is this game giving you the same vibe as the 2002 title?
Wait for Minnesota next year and we can answer that question.
Spring game. There's a spring game. Probably.
I did. I think we were coming down the elevator. I was telling you, Tom, that I was pretty confident against Miami in 2002. I'm feeling similarly confident about Ohio State here.
Tell me about your game pick again.
Oh, no. We don't need to. But again, also, I have never gotten one of these picks right with the Buckeyes in the playoffs. So maybe today is that day.
Well, if you pick both sides, then you're guaranteed to win, unless they tie.
Because then after the game, I'll be like, Tom, remember how I told you how confident I was in the Buckeyes? And you'll be like, oh, the Buckeyes you picked to lose 37-34.
Not here to talk about the past. Vinesh says, how do you see Sean Wade playing tonight? He has to play way better than he did versus Clemson. Mark, what do you expect out of Sean Wade tonight?
Does he, though? Does he have to play that much better? I mean, they won that game by 3 touchdowns. Look, Sean has had some tough moments this year, but he's also had some really strong play as well. I think, look, this is it. There's nothing to hold back tonight. I think he'll play well. I think Devontae Smith is a nightmare matchup for anybody. So I think he'll yield some plays, but I don't think he's going to be like the Achilles heel for these guys tonight or anything like that.
Robert says, bold prediction, OSU defense, 2 interceptions, OSU wins in blowout fashion. By the way, I predicted those tight ends and deep shots last week.
There you go.
No spoilers. OSU going to shock the world tonight. Just watch. I mean, we will watch. We're going to be there.
And if they do win, we won't be shocked because we told you it was going to happen.
Exactly. If you give every possible,
It's like jazz. Sometimes you have to listen to the words we don't say.
Mm-hmm. It's like the people that tweet, 17 before the
Yes.
MLB season, they tweet, this team is going to win the World Series, and they tweet it all about all 30 teams. Obviously says, who's the guy in the big polo? Is that, I guess he's asking about Mark. Mark is wearing the smallest polo of any of us, but Mark is Marc Givler from BuckeyesScoop.com, one of our recruiting analysts. He's down here on the trip with us as well. We go ahead and share a little bit about what the first thing we did when we got off the plane. It's like when you go to Disney World, your kids are like, I want to ride Space Mountain first. I want to ride Space Mountain first. We get off the plane. We don't go to our hotel. We don't go to South Beach. We don't go to. What is Mark? What did you have us do immediately when we got off the plane?
We went to the South Florida Express 7-on-7 practice. So living the dream. What draws all the tourists to Miami is the 7-on-7 football. A lot of good young players over there. We'll be writing about them this week once people start caring about recruiting again once the championship game's over.
Buckeye Sloopcast asked, and you should follow the Buckeye Sloopcast. They are fantastic, great podcast on our podcast network. Is a 400-plus yard game by Mac Jones an indicator of a Bama win or a Bama loss? I think loss, right?
I think it would be more of an indicator of a loss because they are forced to throw in, and we don't have control of the offensive line, of the line of scrimmage, and that feels like you're throwing the ball to come back.
Young Kismet West says, control the line of scrimmage, forcing Jones to be even quicker on the throws, the game is won.
Is that a haiku?
Might be.
Only comment in haiku, please.
Joe Burrow can walk now. True fact. And that's good. Don't
Walk
forget.
away from Skyline.
Buckeye Sloopcast says, don't forget the crew. Every time I talk about this, and this is the best year, what year did the crew win?
Right.
Was it 2021? No. This is not
Tom.
This is not anti-soccer bias. This is how years work.
Oh, that's true.
They did save the crew.
We should
Yes. So the national championship or the rankings, it's just me. Tim says the winning percentage rankings currently 1 Ohio State, 2 Boise, 3 Alabama, 4 Clemson, 5 Michigan, and that's. I mean, these are 2 of the greatest programs in college football history, and Boise State has a little bit of an asterisk because they've only been FBS since the late '90s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of an asterisk there, but these are 2 of the most consistent, greatest programs in college football history, and it's kind of cool to get to watch them play for the national title.
It's also pretty amazing how Michigan, I believe, was number 1 a handful of years ago. To drop 5 spots like in the span of a decade or whatever is. It's tough to do, but Michigan has managed to do it, so congrats to them.
Young Kids Midwest says Hilliard forces 3 fumbles.
What do you think? Over under 1.5.
Over under 1.5. I will still take the under, but I do think Justin's been amazing down the stretch here and expect him to play well again tonight.
Over under, Justin Hilliard will be involved in a turnover, either forcing something, tipping a pass for a turnover, 0.5.
Over.
Recovering.
Yeah, I'd go over on that.
Yeah, the dude is around the football,
Yeah.
and he
I'd
makes
go over on
plays
that.
happen.
Chris Bird says he's a Mets fan too, and you would like this for a reason. It's a reason to like me. It's not a reason to like the other guys. He's a Cubs fan. He's a Phillies fan.
Hey, the
Come on.
'86 Mets still one of my favorite teams of all time. I watched every single game, even the NLCS against the Astros. I thought Mike Scott, he was tough, but they got to him. And Bruce Hurst, the Red Sox, it was tough. They got to him, that crafty lefty. I could give you the lineup for the Mets, batting lineup. Starting with Lenny Dykstra, then going to Wally Backman, and I would play in my living room. I was the '86 Mets because the '86 Cubs are very good.
Thad Bosley? No, not a Thad Bosley person. Chico Walker? No. Jordan wants to know the over/under on Komodo dragon attacks. There are no Komodo dragons. We're not in Indonesia, but
No, I'm pretty sure I was nearly attacked by Komodo dragons.
it was a very, very, very small Indonesia. Obviously, says, who has the best defense? Northwestern, Indiana, Clemson, or Bama? I mean, I think the answer is probably Bama.
Talent-wise,
It's
yeah.
just, talent-wise for sure. It's not that they're bad. It's just they're not up to their normal standard. The normal standard is so high that it's like, this is like a little bit of a rebuilding year on the Alabama defense. They're still in the national championship game, so the defense is fine, but it's just not quite up to the normal standard.
I think with Northwestern's defense being up there, it's good, but it's kind of like with a wink. Again, they're only playing against their conference. Yes, they did very well against Ohio State. I don't know that it was just. Even Ryan Day said there was a number of factors. It wasn't just Northwestern. Not that he wasn't taking credit from them, but I don't know that anybody other than Pat Fitzgerald, and maybe even Pat Fitzgerald, I don't know that anybody's going to take Northwestern's defense over Alabama. Except Mark. No? No? Okay.
Yakov says, since Tressel was hired 20 years ago, OSU has as many national titles as Michigan has wins over Ohio State, which is, boy, go back to the late 1990s and explain that to someone.
They will burn you as a witch if you traveled back and said that.
Brian says Justin Fields will throw 2 picks, doesn't do well under pressure.
I would be surprised if there isn't an interception just because it's a big game and the pressure is there. Like the internal pressure and the external pressure where those things just happen. 2 picks. If he throws 2 picks, can Ohio State win this?
They can, but they probably need to have a couple
Mac
picks
throws
the other
3,
way.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
right,
Mac
yeah.
throws
Tell us
3,
what Mac Jones does.
Right.
Yeah, Ohio State's not going to win this game if they are losing the turnover battle. They could probably win it if they're even.
Turnover battle is going to be always important, but in a game where I really think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns traded, if you can get that extra possession or that extra stop via turnover, it's going to be even more important. You know?
Over under 0.5 onside kicks.
Over, because I think there's going to be enough scoring that there's going to be an onside kick late. You know, someone's going to be down 14, score a touchdown.
Within the first 3 quarters, Tom. To steal a possession.
I wonder if
I can see Ryan Day doing it. I don't know.
I could see Ryan Day doing it. Maybe. I mean, Nick Saban pulled that card in the national championship game a couple of years ago. So now it's something that they're probably looking for. And it's not like Ohio State's kickoff returns are so fantastic that getting back and blocking for Demario McCall is a huge part of the game plan. Like, he's going to stand back there and wave his hands, and the ball's going to fly over his head into the end zone. So you might as well stay up and defend against the onside kick.
I want to say regarding Demario, Mark, you could get Demario McCall MVP 50 to 1 odds if you want that. Just say no. No, thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
No, thanks. Go carry on, Tom.
Racing Nation TV says, look at these Yankees, LMAO.
Go SEC.
I mean, I guess. I have not heard which. Renee wants to know what conference the refs are. I have not heard the answer on that.
Probably from the Sun Belt. They live down the street. And you just bring them over.
Mm-hmm. Avi says, Bama fans like to talk about how the Ohio State defense is 117th. Please explain to them why the number is skewed, and Ohio State is definitely much better than 117th best secondary. I mean, this is a far better Ohio State secondary than it was 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. It's also, you're constantly ahead, so teams are throwing against you a lot. And the first half of the Rutgers game, the first half of the Indiana game, when it was a close competitive game, there wasn't a ton of yardage, and then things got out of hand, and it was like, okay, and then Ohio State had some bad second halves. They haven't had a bad second half in a while now, so I mean, going back to November probably.
Not to throw anyone under the bus, but there's been a personnel change as well that has correlated to a better performance by the secondary.
Funny how that happens.
Yeah.
And again, it's game 7. You get better as the year goes on.
David says Game 6 of the 1986 NLCS, the greatest game of all time. It is up there. That was for sure the best postseason of any year, because the ALCS gets completely overshadowed, and that was insane.
Yeah.
The Dave Henderson homer. I mean, that was.
It cost the guy his life.
Buckeye scoop. That's actually not true. That's
that's the legend, though.
That's the legend. Yes. Our friend Ken says, if Mark is attacked by a gator live on camera, this video will go viral. Do you wanna? Mark's looks
for the company.
Are you dedicated to the company or not, Mark?
See the game tonight.
Yeah, that's true. Fine, get attacked tomorrow.
They have
Fine.
TVs in the hospital.
Don't alligators eat feed at night too? Like, should we go out there like later, like a flashlight or something, and see if we can rustle anything up?
They usually do not feed the alligators. They didn't say anything about don't taunt them.
Mm-hmm. It's just me. Tim says dolphins can swim into Florida rivers. I don't know if this is a river or a lake, or I think this is like a lake. I don't think this is actually a river.
Are you saying the dolphins would protect us?
They would have to. They would have to get on the bus and come over here, and then could do it. Do you think the OSU valued the game Alabama film versus Notre Dame, or was the Florida game far more worthwhile? I mean, I think they're looking at all of it. I think Notre Dame did some of the things, especially in the second half that Ohio State may try, so you maybe learn something from that. But I mean, this is probably a better defense than either of those, I would guess.
I mean, one thing Notre Dame did offensively was the tight ends were open. They were really hitting the tight ends a lot. They just couldn't get the running game going, and they didn't have enough on the outside to keep drives going, and eventually they'd get a negative play, and that would be that. But I think you could take some stuff there, and I think even Brian Kelly was talking about that, how he just wished he had a little more juice on the outside in that game. But
Dalton says if the defensive line plays like the dogs they are and Browning rushing off the edge, he doesn't think Mac Jones will excel under that kind of pressure. I mean, that I think is one of the that's one of the things that you would really see. Apparently, it is Big 12 officials.
And then keep an eye on if Baron Browning does have some success running, have him drop back in his own blitz or something. Quick interception, and there you go. It would technically be that defensive end interception we're talking about.
Anthony says look for a close game. This is presumably from an Alabama fan. He's worried Alabama has played way more games and probably not as fresh as Ohio State. And then this is the same conversation we had before the Clemson game. Does that mean that you're more fresh, or does that mean that you still haven't done? You still haven't had time to sort out all of your issues. I think if they had played 12 games, they certainly would have liked to have played a lot more games than they did to sort of get stuff sorted out before.
I think this is the most sorted out Ohio State has been. So maybe
sure.
this now they do have an advantage, because it wasn't an advantage against Clemson because they were still trying to figure out who they are. Maybe now they have figured it out. So maybe there is finally, but I still think they'd rather have 12 games under their belt than 7.
Over under 1.5 picks from Lathan Ransom. Under. That's easy. That's a real easy one.
If it's over, congratulations Ohio State, you've won a national championship.
probably in blowout fashion.
Guy closest to the water is one gets snatched up by a gator, and he has a gator in his face. So there you go, Mark.
I know.
You win. I think we are going to. We're pretty close. I think we've pretty much gone to the end of the questions. And don't worry, we have more of this coming. Tony and I are going to be. Tony and I will be at the stadium a little bit later this afternoon. We will. We'll have at least another probably hour, I'm guessing, of this. We're hoping to do it inside the stadium, kind of mid to late afternoon. I'm guessing 2 o'clock-ish.
Okay.
2 to 3 o'clock-ish.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
In that range.
Somewhere in that range. So the best thing you can do is hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel right now. Just go to, Buckeye Scoop, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Hit the subscribe button. What'll happen then is you'll get a little pop-up notification on your phone or, whatever your device is when we go live with that pregame show from the stadium. It should be less windy there, hopefully, ideally. That's the plan. We'll see. Unless we have to do it outside. So less chance of one of us getting eaten by a large dinosaur, but probably a little less windy too. And we'll ideally what we'll be able to do is we'll take you. We tend to, when we're inside the stadium, especially at a place we haven't been before, flip the camera around, walk you around the stadium a little bit, give you a little tour so you can see how things look. I know people are always very excited to see the inside the stadium before the game. So we'll try and get you in there early, let you see that, and so make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also, hey, subscribe to BuckeyeScoop.com because we have a whole ton of content there. The Ask the Insiders board has been just flying today, so this would be a great time to join BuckeyeScoop.com as well.
Don't miss the game thread today.
Yeah, no, man, that game thread is going to be humming today, all day, all night, into tomorrow. Based on past Ohio State games, it can go pretty far, pretty late into the night. So
The Clemson game thread started the game before, and I think went at least a day after.
Yeah. So that should be a lot of fun. So you can BuckeyeScoop.com, YouTube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Very easy to remember. Do all that right now.
All right, that'll do it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you guys for submitting the questions. We couldn't do it without you. So have a good day. We will talk to you guys later.